be very easily brought round to our way, you know.
That's something I don't disagree with what you're saying, but so I think we need to use techniques.
What I'm targeting is the people who can think for themselves. Now, what I use as the acid test is 9/11. Now, even if someone's never heard about 9/11, there's a few things you can say to them, and you can see in their eyes whether they've taken that on board and thought, I must go and check that out.
Yes.
The people who choose I do not go, no, it can't be the case. It can't be the case for reasons. Oh, they've never let that happen in the mainstream. You know, the mainstream have exposed it. Those people I walk away from because they clearly can't get it. So there's no point in wasting my time with somebody who's not at the right moment to go on the journey. So again, we can narrow this down if we understand the techniques of genuinely changing consciousness. But people don't. They go for this stuff that's supposed to work, the manufactured way of doing things that we see in the mainstream media, that actually doesn't really change people's hearts at all, but it's about getting the right opinion poll reading on the right independence referendum result at the right time.
Well, I think Chomsky said there's about 80% of people that you just have to forget about. You know, I mean, we can argue about the percentages, I suppose. The more optimistic might be, 70-30 or whatever.
And what I say as well, I mean, I'm saying to people, you can use the common law to stop paying your mortgage and rent. Now that's a message that chimes with people. Again, I mean a lot of spiritual people, and I want to talk to people about the chakras and, activating their divine light in their whatever. I never talk about that crap. I really don't. If you want gain divine light, go and help an old lady across the road. Put a quid in a bloody guy's thing that's begging by the side of the street. Don't go anywhere near a mainstream charity because they're Babylon, basically.
Right.
So the techniques, say, of learning about love is law. You don't have to pay your mortgage. That chimes with somebody in a way that anything else doesn't. So the practicality about my spirituality is not something airy-fairy.
Yeah.
And I've shown where this spirituality is recognised within their system of law as a higher law, in case law, in constitutions. People think Magna Carta created rights. You go to the plaque there today, it will tell you this was the beginning of democratic society and right. Not. Those rights existed in the Bible for thousands of years beforehand. They were just written down for the first time in Magna Carta, but nevertheless they are written down, and Magna Carta was agreed for perpetuity. So my common law rights have been decided in perpetuity in English constitutional law. But if you don't take that, you can take English case law. Donahue versus Stevenson shows that love your neighbour as you love yourself, the common law, is higher than contract law. Your relationship with government is of course a contract, so you could get out of that contract by calling the love your neighbour principle, where you're only judged on your duty of care to your fellow man, basically.
Yeah, if you don't mind, could you just briefly talk about common law and maritime law? Because I think there'll be a lot of people who would never heard of that at all.
What you
give us a simple version.
Yeah, everything you've been told is law is nonsense. It's not.
That's pretty simple.
Yeah, that's a simple start to it. The law comes from the Bible. People will tell you the Bible is Jewish or Christian. The Bible is non-denominational. The Bible, when it says God gives you two commands, love God and love your neighbours as yourself, that is and he says the next line, on these two commandments hang all of the law and the prophets. So that's law given by God, stands to reason. If I cause you harm, loss or injury, I then compensate you. That is law. So parity is restored. Anything that comes after that, created by man, is by definition optional because it's created by man, and man is not infallible. And therefore, legislation can only work with your consent. Now people say to me, why do people get evicted from their homes and so on? And that's because they get a possession order. But a possession order is not signed by the judge, so it has no validity. They rely upon somebody official turning up, giving it to you, and you walking out of your home and consenting to the order. But if you don't, they can only remove you from your house by breaking the law themselves. And this obviously applies to things like growing hemp. Hemp can be licensed this day and age, but it's only a license to big business, and that means the price of hemp is artificially raised. Hemp is perfect nutrition, it's a fuel, you make your clothes out of it, you do about everything with it, that's why it's banned, of course. But obviously you need the land to do that, the common law also. Earth, copyright God. No man can own that land, but a man who takes up a piece of land, grows his own crops and so on, looks after himself, that's his land under the common law, as long as he's not causing anybody else harm, loss or injury.
And for the layman, the definition of common law is not causing injury.
It's in law. It's called a duty of care to your fellow human beings.
Okay.
Corporations, of course, crucially have no rights in law because corporations have no souls. Therefore, they can't take responsibility for their actions. Now, it's my argument that if we enforced common law, we don't need the left. The only reason that people have to get together is because people in governments and big corporations have shat upon people rather than calling them their common law rights. Now, if that didn't exist, we don't need the left. We don't need all that corporate nonsense that comes from trade unions and lefties and everything else, because those people really are a major cause of the problem. They really are. All these so-called Greens and Liberals are saying, Friends of the Earth, Greenpeace, they're actually parasites. They're actually taking money off good people and squandering it and not actually sorting out the problems of the world. Whereas if people just ignored those corporations, took that money and invested it in hemp, we could change the world overnight.
I mean, I have something of a background in psychology, and the whole conclusion I've reached is it all comes down to fear. Because people consent because they're afraid.
And that's a very spiritual teaching.
Yes.
The opposite of love in spirituality is not hate. Hate's a subset of fear. And that fear comes from the basic lack of belief that there's actually a good God out there. If you firmly believe there's a good God out there, what do you have to fear? And of course, once you have fear, of course, that's when all the other lower emotions come into play, like jealousy and anger. And of course, people will, there's these Eastern types who tell you, it's all about the elimination of those things. And I will tell you, it's not.
No, I don't think so.
If you eliminate your emotions, you're a psychopath.
Right,
But what you do in spirituality is you master your emotions. And this is the great problem at the moment, which is all these people who are just, headless chickens. And the second something goes wrong, they'll start pointing the finger at each other. Whereas we should learn a lesson from the New World Order. When things happen they haven't foreseen, they'll sit down around a table and have a very rational discussion about how they can best exploit it for themselves. That's what we should be doing. The same thing. Something happens, rather than, oh my God, he's the source, or oh my God, look at me, done it wrong, he chose that. No, sit down, don't blame each other, think how can we work with this, basically.
I think one of the things is that we don't really experience any real fear. We all have fairly comfortable lives. Like, I think if we came face to face with a lion, we'd probably know what fear was. But so I think it's all.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely
it's
absolutely right. Now,
we all live quite comfortable lives now. So
if you've been on the wrong side of these people, like I have, and they've tried to kill you on a number of occasions,
right?
And obviously, for a period of that time, I was an atheist. Now, there's nothing bleaker, I don't believe, than being an atheist, believing there is no redemption or resurrection, and having people genuinely trying to kill you. Now, I'm not somebody who's just wanted a psychiatric ward and said they're trying to kill me. I was on the wrong side of the intelligence services, who ironically I was blowing the whistle on because they carry out assassination operations.
Right.
So this is not a paranoid thought. The techniques they use, the classic techniques of car accidents, germ warfare, biological
plane accidents
warfare.
in America, particularly.
Exactly. So they use these things against me. I was an atheist, so I didn't believe in redemption. That is the scariest thing you'll ever face, and that was, ironically, the biggest step on my spiritual journey, was to go on that journey and believe that there was some higher power that was guiding me and protecting me, basically. And obviously, once I'd done that, and I do point out to people, in a previous life, I've been nailed to a cross. Now, that was obviously an extremely painful experience, but I believed in God at the time. I believed in redemption. What I went through this time, the last incarnation, was to come into a world in which the church was talking bollocks, in which the New Age was talking bollocks, and science was the new God. Would the final incarnation of Jesus' soul then come round to, one, that it was love, and two, who he was? That's happened, and this is why the other side have lost. They haven't actually realised the whole battle was to stop a Christ awakening. That's what all this stuff is about. People can try and confine it to politics, but it's not. It's about the secret societies. It's about the age-old battle of good and evil, and a secret that people are trying to protect. And that secret has now been revealed. It's the name of the Messiah. The other side have lost. They don't know that yet, but they have lost because they failed to stop me waking up. And the third and final testament's written. The law is out there. All it needs now is the will of humanity to enact that. Now, for the last 7 years or 8 years, I've sat back and thought, right, I don't want anybody taking the credit for what I do this time, as has happened in the past with the 9/11 Truth Movement. 2 years into it, give my life to it, they suddenly turn around and kick me out. They're surprised that their movement falls apart. You know what I mean? It's like you don't play Wayne Rooney and you don't win. People are going to be asking questions, basically. I'm not saying it all myself. Obviously, I rely on the support of other people. But one man inspired by God can do all sorts of things that no munchkin in a political organisation will ever be able to see, ever, basically. And so, what I'm saying to people now is, I've sat around for 7 years. I've said to humanity, get on with this. No one's shown any kind of leadership. There is a need for a Messiah figure. And again, to stress what I'm talking about, if I take authority, I only rule according to law. I will not hold anybody to account who's not caused harm, not injury to anybody else, basically. But it does need a central figure, because people, in a sense, need something to rally around as well. And this is where the Eastern kind of spirituality gets it wrong. It retreats. It doesn't have that kind of charismatic leader or whatever. And the leadership I practice is only in the most loose sense of the word. I don't respect responsibility for anybody, basically. I really don't. So don't follow me and end up at my house. Follow the way and the teachings, basically. And if people did that, if everybody in this country got tomorrow morning and said, I'm going to try as hard as possible to obey the principle of love your neighbour as you love yourself, by the end of the week, the problems would be over.
Yeah,
we'd have a whole lot of truth in newspapers. We'd have a whole lot of truth in Parliament, and so on.
Again, I totally agree with you. I'm just wondering how that would happen.
I say, stop paying mortgages. You speak the language they understand.
Right.
The problem is the political people don't understand. They don't have what the true empathy, where you've got to look at your enemy and understand your enemy. But the enemy of the left is rich people, rich business owners, and people like that. Now they're clearly not the problem.